Hi, have you ever climbed a mountain? It's quite exhilarating. I know when I was 16 years old, I climbed a mountain named Mount Sopris in Colorado. And when I got to the top, it was so beautiful. I could look over the whole mountain range. And it was about 13,500 feet, I think. And I thought that I was on top of the world. But this lesson is about Tibet. And this lesson talks about really being on top of the world. The elevation is up above 20,000, and the tallest mountain is above 29,000 feet. That really is a high place. It's the highest place on earth. They call it the roof of the world. Tibet, it's north of India and Nepal, that area. And right now it's about the size of 1/8 of the United States. They call it the Tibetan Plateau because the plateau is flat with mountain ranges on the sides. So it's a kind of a flat area. There's farming below 12,000 feet. So they have very little farming because their valleys are low. Some of the valleys are low enough, but above 12,000 feet, you can't really farm there much at all. Most of the area is wasteland. It has gravel and rock and sand. The lakes and rivers are pretty barren. They don't really have like trees on the sides of the lakes. It's just like a lake. It's filled with a lot of high salt content. So some of the lakes they can't even use for water. The Kulan Mountains are there, and also the highest peaks of those mountains run up to the 20,000, and they're on the northern border of Tibet. In the south, we have the Himalayan mountains. You should remember that. Himalayan mountains, very important. The tallest mountain range in the world. The tallest mountain in the world is Mount Everest at 29,035 feet. Wow, I thought 13,000. We get up that high, 29,000, and you need to breathe oxygen. The air would be so thin up there. And I don't think that many people stay at that elevation. That's why a lot of people, when they climb Mount Everest, have a hard time breathing, and they have to bring oxygen. But anyway, some of the greatest rivers come out of this area. They're the source of the Indus River, the Mekong River, the Yangtze River, and Yellow Rivers in China all come down from the Himalayan mountains. The Himalayan mountains also block some of the winds to come through. Otherwise, they would be hit with these great monsoons that would come through. They're very dry on the side of the Tibetan Plateau. It only gets like 10 inches of rain a year, most places, although they do have blizzards there because the wind blows really, really hard in some of those areas at those high elevations. Farming, like I said, they don't farm much, but they do raise livestock. They raise camels, cattle, donkey, goats, horses, sheep, and yaks. Yaks are their most important because they use the yaks for transportation, for milk, for meat. They make they make their shoes with the hide. They take their hair and they make cloths and tents. Yak wool, everything's made of yak wool. They also have this dish called tsampa, and it's barley, tea, and yak butter. They make yak butter. That's their dairy product with yak butter that they eat. They enjoy this sweet tea that they make with sugar, yak butter, and a little bit of salt. Can you imagine drinking that? I don't know if I'd try it, would you? Maybe. It'd be kind of crazy. So they enjoy this tea, and then they do have a lot of wildlife and other things there, as you see in those pictures, but those are at lower elevations. But the yak, so the most important animal in this area would be the yak. Okay, now we're going to talk about the palace. They have a palace, highest palace elevation, the highest palace in the world. And it's called the Potala Palace. And it was actually built by the Buddhists, and a certain type of Buddhist called the Lamaism. And the head guy was called the Dalai Lama. And this Lama's palace is up there at 12,300 feet. And it's made of earth, wood, and stone. King Songtsen Gampo built that palace for the Tibet Empire. He built the palace in the 600s, and then it burned down a couple times. They rebuilt it. The fifth Dalai Lama built this new structure in 1645 for his residence there. He would be the head of the government in Tibet. It was built in phases. They had 7,000 workers, 1,500 artists and craftsmen. The walls were 10 feet thick. It was on 32 acres, which is a huge palace. It had 700 wall murals and statues. And then it took quite a while, like a whole football field, 300 steps to climb up into the palace. At that high elevation, it'd be very hard to climb up all those steps. I don't know if I would be able to do it. Maybe you guys would. You guys are a little younger. So here we have, and when I think about the Dalai Lama and Buddhism, I think too it's very sad because they have no way to get to God. In fact, most Buddhists, are really atheists. Buddhism has a lot to do with finding your inner self and your life, and that kind of stuff. It's actually it came from Hinduism. So it all kind of that whole area, and the Buddhism too has all these different factions. And the Dalai Lama, supposed to be the holiest person. I remember way back before you were born, when I was just a little girl, we had the rock groups and even the Beatles, when they would have to go to Tibet to see the Dalai Lama. I'm like, what? I thought it was a llama. I didn't know what it was then, or what he was then, but they were seeking after something to fulfill their life. They thought, well, maybe the Dalai Lama, well, no, we'll have lots of wisdom. No, we know because Jesus came. God came and reached down to us. We don't have to do our 300 steps to get to heaven. Isn't that wonderful? Man's religion is trying to get up there and to God, and God's heart reached down. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life. It would be a great place to go and share the gospel, because this type of Buddhism is very, very complicated, and it's without hope. But anyway, it's nice to know about this highest place on earth. It's nice to know the creator of the earth and the universe. And to go to those high places in life, look down and say, wow, God, you're amazing, God. You've made some really beautiful things. That's what I think. But anyway, as the Tibetan people, they were pretty harsh people. They probably didn't, a lot of them didn't live that long at that high elevation. And they're very primitive people, most of them. Well, in history, of course, China has taken over this area many times. And this area, the Tibetans always paid tribute to Genghis Khan. The Mongol Empire came and actually overtook them too and ruled them during this time. And then in 1644, the Qing dynasty was ruling. So we're talking about 1600s, this dynasty that had the Buddhism with the Dalai Lama ruled back then. That's our story for today.